Welcome. This is To Our Core with Katie Murray, and this is the place where we peel back our layers to uncover who we really are at our centre, at our core. And think of it as a chat with your bestie, the one who can make you laugh until your belly hurts, who is ridiculously unfiltered, and will lovingly call you forward to help you cut through the noise and get real with yourself. Around here, nothing is off limits, and we are mixing this up with equal parts humour and heart, so let's dive right in. Hey beautiful people, and welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to dive into a phrase that many of you have probably heard of, maybe in your childhood, maybe even in your adulthood, and that is, children should be seen and not heard. And I just want to say right now that I don't think that this statement only actually applies to children. It's one of those sayings that can sound really outdated. And if we're honest, if we have had that experience or we have heard that saying before in our childhood, there is every chance that we are still carrying that, particularly on an unconscious level, into our adulthood. And not because someone is necessarily specifically saying to you that you need to be quiet. Instead, along the way, as we often do between the ages of 0 and 7, where we are most susceptible to imprinting and being able to absorb those messages that we hear from the outside world, whether that's family, friends, media, whatever it might be, we can internalize these themes for ourselves and create a whole story about what that means. So let me ask you the question. Are you really being seen in your own life? And I don't mean existing in the background or being present or smiling politely. I'm asking if you're truly being seen in your life. And I wonder whether or not you think that there's a difference between being seen and actually being able to be known. Because here's the thing. If you're not being seen, is it because you're holding back on what you want to say? And that's what we're going to be unpacking today in this podcast. And I'm going to leave you with 3 practical strategies because I'm more than just this being about a talk fest. I want you to be able to apply this to your life. If you're identifying and resonating with what I'm talking about and you think that this is really beneficial for you, then I would like to give you some tangible things that you can walk away from in each episode that you listen to so that you can move forward from being a silent observer. And I'm not necessarily just talking about silence in regards to maybe you say, I do have a voice, maybe I am speaking up for myself, maybe you're doing all of these things. However, are you editing it to the point that it feels the most palatable version of yourself for other people? And instead, could you move from being that observer or that edited form of yourself instead to move into being a more empowered participant in your own life? So the old chestnut, seen but not heard. For a lot of this isn't, for a lot of us, this isn't just about childhood. We may have heard that or learned up in our childhood that speaking up may have in the past made other people uncomfortable. Maybe you were told you were too much. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive. Maybe you were told you were too opinionated. Maybe you were told to shush a lot or settle down or not speak out of turn. And so because of that, you started editing yourself. Because you wanted to keep the peace. You wanted to avoid rejection. You wanted to be accepted. You didn't want to rock the boat. And therefore, either consciously or unconsciously, you may have started to shrink your voice. And now we look fast forwarding into adulthood, and you might find yourself present at the table in both your work, your relationships, and your friendships, and you're not really being heard. And I'm not saying that you're not utilizing your voice. I'm not saying you're not speaking up. However, you may have curated yourself to the point to create a perception in others about how they can view you so that you are the most tolerated and tolerable form to others. And you may have been rewarded for that with comments like, oh my goodness, she's so easygoing. And inside, you've got other things that you want to say, yet you're biting your tongue or you're concealing what you really want to contribute because you want to stay safe in being part of the collective, part of the not rocking the boat. And the truth is, like I mentioned before, being seen without being heard isn't the same as being known. It's like people get the outline of you and not the full color version. And maybe it's been to the point in your life where you have been curating and editing how you show up, how you talk, how you present yourself to other people, that you've got so used to that version of yourself that you now no longer know or trust your intuition and trust that inner voice and have that deep self-trust within yourself to be able to make decisions and speak up where you need to, or make the next move in your life, because you have got so used to assessing your external environment for what they expect and what they want, that now you're left in a situation where you don't trust your internal systems, your own mind and your own heart and your own aspirations to go after what you want. And here's where it gets really interesting. I want to ask you, what are you not saying that you really want to say? If you weren't worried about what people might think, if you weren't worried about what people may say, if you weren't worried about how people might react, what would you really be saying in your life? And I want you to take a minute to think about that. Because maybe you're at work and you want to say, I've got ideas too, and I want to sit at the table. Maybe it's in your relationships and you want to say, I really need some support, and I don't want there to be assumptions that I've got it all handled because I need help. Or maybe it's even with yourself where you are saying that deep inner knowing is like, I'm allowed to want more than just survival, and I'm allowed to dream big. And the things that we often don't say, they're the things that are actually keeping us stuck, because when you silence your internal truth, your knowing, and you suppress it and you push it down, you end up living a half life in terms of your capacity, in terms of what you could achieve, because you're focusing on performance rather than actually expressing your needs, wants, and desires. Maybe you find yourself where you are so wanting to fit in with your environment that even if you went to a cafe and you ordered a coffee and it came out completely wrong, you are less likely to say something and to drink that oat milk decaf triple shot beverage of a horror show, because you see that if you speak up for yourself, if you say, that's not what I ordered, can you please change it, that you view that you might be a nuisance to others. And that's how ingrained and subtle it can be, where you have created this perception of yourself, or this belief within yourself, that your job is to fit in. Your job is to be least problematic. Your job is to not be a nuisance or a bother to anyone else. And in order to do that, you swallow the words within yourself that you want to speak up. And if you can't speak up for something as small as how you like your coffee, how will you speak up for the big things that you want? Like your dreams, your boundaries, your needs. How many times have you sat in a restaurant with someone and their order has come out wrong, and you've looked at them and they've just gone, oh, it's fine, doesn't matter, it's fine, no, I'll take it, it's fine. When it's clearly not what they ordered, it's not what they are going to pay for, and yet they are more happy to swallow the food that they didn't order than actually speak up and advocate for themselves in regards to their wants. So when we look at that, if we're silencing ourselves on even the smallest levels, where else are we silencing ourselves, and where do we want to speak up and say what we're not saying? because your voice is your power. And it's not just about speaking louder or talking more or being the noisiest person in the room. It's not about you being an agitator. It's about you owning your perspective and your truth and your boundaries and your needs, because by doing so, every time you back yourself in even the smallest ways, like, I'm sorry that coffee's not what I ordered, then you develop that internal acknowledgement that what you want matters, that what you want counts, that you have the right to ask for what you want. And I see this a lot with women in particular, that they get so used to suppressing what they want that when they come to me and they work with me and I say to them pretty early on in the piece, what do you want? They don't even know. It's been so long since they've checked in about what they want and what they need, that they have lost that sense of self. They've lost the trust to be able to speak up and identify what they want. And so therefore they're like floating through this life like some passive observer, pleasing everyone else around them, trying to be the most palatable form of themselves. When you silence yourself, you're really handing over control to others. And instead, when you reclaim your voice, you step into cause, which I've touched on a few times over the period of this podcast. And cause is really when we take control and responsibility over our own lives, including how we like our coffee. And when you step into cause, you're no longer at the effect of someone else's opinion, expectations, or assumptions, because you claim your responsibility to go after what you want and don't expect anyone else to deliver it for you. And a lot of the time, we also map this across in relationships where we expect our partners to know what we want, or we expect our friends to know what we need, and yet we haven't actually articulated it, we haven't voiced it, and then we mind read and we anticipate what they're thinking and what they think about us. And a lot of the questions that I asked in my coaching is, do you know that? Was that said to you, or are you mind reading? Because if we're all playing this game and we're not speaking up about what we want and what we need, and utilizing our voice to be able to express what we think and the opinions we have on something, then we're constantly just in this game of anticipating or mind reading what everyone else is thinking because they're not speaking it. And that in itself is a huge breakdown in communication. And here's the good news though, that reclaiming your voice doesn't mean that you suddenly become confrontational or loud. It can mean that you learn to express yourself with authenticity, clarity, and courage, and you get to know yourself better. Because like I said, every time you do it and you realize that the whole world doesn't implode when you speak up about something that you've got an opinion about or a perspective on, or, whatever it might be, it's not just as simple as ordering your coffee and getting the right order. You reaffirm to yourself that nothing bad happened. You can also use your voice to ask someone for clarification around what they're thinking or whatever it might be, and then you get the feedback from them so that enhances your communication, that enhances your understanding of the other person. So let's get practical on 3 strategies that you could utilize in order to support you to reclaim your voice. And a lot of the times you might also see that the themes that I introduce really require micro actions. So many of us want to leap to the big actions so that we can kind of put the flag down and say, here I am, I've done some courageous action, or I've done something really significant and therefore I can celebrate it. However, if we stack up tiny little micro decisions or actions that we make throughout the day, one step at a time, they all lead to constant proof and evidence for your brain that you can do the thing that you say you want to do. So the first strategy I would introduce is practicing micro bravery. You don't have to start utilizing your voice by having the scariest conversation. It doesn't have to be the tough conversation that you have to sit down in. It might be in the small moments of speaking up. It might be when someone hands you the wrong coffee, you can say to them, "I'm sorry, that's not what I ordered. Could I please have," and reaffirm what you actually ordered. Maybe it's about sharing your opinion in a meeting. Maybe it's about speaking up with your friend about what you actually want to do on the weekend. Maybe it's about talking to your partner and saying, "I really need some help out with the kids." However you do it, it's like a muscle. And every single micro action is like a gym session where you continue to build the muscle so that it gets bigger for the larger conversations, the bigger times where you might need to use your voice. And you're going to have all of that stockpile of micro actions of bravery to be able to compound your ability to be able to speak up in those situations where your voice might feel a little shakier than others. The second strategy I would recommend for you is actually reframing your story. So your story might be, in the past or currently for you, is that I'll upset people if I speak up, or they'll think that I'm too opinionated, or they'll think that I'm being bossy, or they'll think that I'm being needy. There's such a thing, I see like a theme with women about them not wanting to be viewed as needing anything. And I'm sure that there's a number of reasons and conditioning and the patriarchy and everything that probably plays into that, and comments about, "Oh my God, you're so needy." Like it's got such a edge to it that women have got so much distance now from their needs that they don't even know what they are. Women have got so much distance between their own needs that they don't necessarily know what they are anymore. So, how we could reframe that is by looking at, if your old story is that if I upset people and speak up, instead you could change that and rewrite the narrative to being something like, by speaking up, I give people the chance to actually know me. And you know what will be probably the likely outcome is that you will actually get to know yourself as well. Because the thing is with suppression is that we just pack stuff on top of it, everyone else's opinions and thoughts and perspectives, and suppress our own. However, when we start taking the weight of other people's opinions off ourselves, if we start taking the weight of other people's thoughts and perspectives and potential reactions, where we move into the mind read of how they might react to things, then we can actually create room and space to hear what we actually want. We can actually create space to be able to hear what we need and what we want to say. Because your voice is not a burden. It's a gift. And people want to know you. Like, I want to know that my partner can speak up about his thoughts. I want to know that my friends can speak to me about their thoughts. I want to know that my children can speak up to me and air their perspectives and their opinions, even when it involves them. You know, my kids know how to advocate for themselves. I have no doubt that their voice is being heard because they are great negotiators. And also it's really important because if I don't hear their voice and I don't hear my partner's voice and I don't hear my friends' voices, then how can I truly know them? And don't we want to be known? Don't we want to feel like we're seen and we're understood? Yet if we step into cause and we take responsibility for our actions, then silencing our voice is preventing others from getting to know us. And what's the fear behind that? The fear behind that might be that if they know me, if they truly know me, then perhaps they won't love me, they won't like me, they won't accept me, they won't want me to be part of whatever group that I want to be part of. So we start molding ourselves to our environment. We start looking outside of ourselves for validation of what's expected of us. And we just move into performing. And then we become so lost in that act that we find it really difficult sometimes to be able to reconnect with who we are, let alone getting those that we love or those that we surround ourselves with to know us as well. So I want to invite you to really notice the beliefs that you've inherited and ask yourself, is this mine? Is this my belief? And if it is this one that I actually want to keep? Is this a belief I want to hold on to? Because if it's not supporting me to get where I want, it's not supporting me to feel seen or heard, then is it achieving an outcome that is actually going to fulfill me? The third thing I would recommend is anchoring into your body. So often our behaviors and our brain are operating from a place where we really want to keep ourselves safe. Safe from whatever that may be, like I've talked about, abandonment, rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment, whatever it might be. And when fear hits, your body can react with a variety of physiological symptoms like a tight chest, shaky hands, racing heart. And instead of letting that shut you down, I want you to breathe into it. I want you to feel into it. I'm not sure whether any of you have heard about the physiological cycle of an emotion. It tends to go through a spike over a 90-second cycle. And so if we allowed ourselves to feel into emotions, the emotion would ease off and disappear within approximately 90 seconds. And I don't know about you, but there's been plenty of emotions that I have had running through my nervous system and my body for over 90 seconds. And you know why that is the case? It's because of the story that I have attached to the emotion. So it might be something like a sensation of fear or anxiety or stress. And then I create a story about, oh, this is not good, this is bad because of, and I create a whole nother picture and story. And so what happens is it evokes the next chemical response of letting that physiological response through the body with that emotion. And it cycles around and around because we're ruminating on our thoughts, we're creating stories, we are mind reading what other people are thinking about us. And then we continue to rotate this cycle over and over again. So breathing into the emotion and actually feeling it and acknowledging that it's present and putting your feet on the floor and hand on your heart and reminding yourself, in this case in regards to speaking up about what you want or your opinions or expressing yourself in any way, that I'm safe to speak here. And my voice matters too. Regulating your nervous system helps you to speak from a place that's calm and not panicked. So here's the reflection I would invite you to sit with this week. Are you really being seen? Or are you just being visible, physically present, however, the outline rather than the full coloured picture of you with all your lights and shade? And what is one thing that you're ready to say that you've been holding back? Really leaning into asking yourself, what do I want to say that I'm not saying? And remember that reclaiming your voice, it doesn't happen overnight. I don't expect you to wake up tomorrow morning and be like, right, I'm going to utilize my voice. However, through the micro moments of courage, and maybe even the smallest of moments of utilizing your voice won't feel that courageous. Maybe it just feels like, oh, of course I could. And yet you still haven't, because of that programming that's running underlying underneath the surface, that is basically saying, don't speak up because they might think. So that mind read trap. It happens in the micro moments of courage, in the new stories that you choose to believe and rewrite, and by regulating your body so that your truth can not only flow, but you can actually get to know it. You can actually tap into, what do I think about this? What's my opinion on this? How can I step outside of potentially what everyone else in the room is thinking so that I can be my own thought leader here? That I can feel like I trusted myself enough in that moment to be able to say what I thought instead of suppressing it like it was less valid than anyone else's opinion in the room. Because you were not put on this earth to be seen and not heard. You were put here to be fully expressed. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you for tuning in today. And I look forward to seeing you in the very next episode, or you listening to me in the very next episode. And if you're ready to go deeper in regards to reclaiming your voice and releasing self-sabotage, join the waitlist for the self-sabotage solution. I'll drop the link in the show notes. And until next time, speak up, be seen, and live boldly. Thanks for spending time with me today on To Our Core. If something landed in your heart or gave you a much needed giggle, consider sharing it with a friend who also may need this as a timely reminder. And go on. You know you want to. Give me a 5-star review so that this podcast can land in the ears of many, many more people. Because remember that life is too short to stay on the surface. Keep living, loving, and laughing all the way to your core. Go make life great. And if you want support around this, go to the show notes to find out more. Until next time, I'll meet you back here with more truth, laughter, and a whole lot of heart.